When it comes to bow hunting whitetails, we're going to talk in this video a little bit about not only when to hunt and where, but how to set that stand location or blind location up so that it makes a lot of sense and it allows you to shoot a buck that comes in. Now, I'm hoping to offer something for you out there that's been bow hunting for 40 years plus, and for you that's just hunting bow hunting for the first time this year. This is a little bit different gun hunting. It's interesting. I shoot a lot of my bucks with a gun out of my bow hunting setups because they're back in thick cover, and if a buck comes through that location, he's within that bow shot area, and at the same time I'm probably not going to see him, or I can't get a shot with a gun or a bow because of the hills, because of the habitat. It might be open habitat on one side and I know he's not going to go through there, so it really narrows him down, and that's part of the setup, part of the strategy. So if you're a bow hunter, stay tuned. Talk about bedding areas. Now, should you ever hunt a bedding area? And I do. I hunt on the edge of bedding areas. I love hunting on the edge of bedding areas and a lot of features too. The bedding areas edge, that's where I hunt, and I wait till the pre-rut. I usually don't hunt these locations unless I know a buck is going to this spot. Some type of indication, whether it's sign, sighting, or trail cameras, would lead me to think, boy, I have a reasonable chance of going in there and shooting that buck in the morning during the opening day of bow, during the October lull. Then I'm not going in until the pre-rut. Because when I go in the pre-rut, I expect a buck to be around these bedding areas based on history, historical sign, meaning I'm seeing a lot of young, fresh rubs, new rubs, and then I've seen old rubs that have been there for years, 10 years. And so you see these scarring of trees, you see fresh rubs, you see that combination. It makes sense because this bedding area is well away from food. There's does between that location and the food source. That means you're probably in a bedding area for bucks. A lot of people confuse a bedding area, thick area right before a food source because there's a lot of rubs and scrapes there. They think, well, a buck must be bedding there. No, it's does and fawns are there. They exit, go to the food. Buck comes from his bedding area, goes through that. That's an area called a staging area. When they go through that staging area, they leave a bunch of rubs and scrapes because it's the last safe spot before their food source in the afternoon. So they hole up there, make a bunch of rubs and scrapes, and they move on. If you try to hunt it, you're spooking does out, deer out in the morning because it's next to food. If you go in there in the afternoon to hunt an evening sit, then you're just spooking deer in general that are does and fawns that are already bedding there. If you spook them there, you're going to spook out the buck bedding too. So you stay well away from staging areas most of the time. Not a great place to hunt. Instead, you're hunting in the bedding areas in the morning. You're in the rut waiting for a buck to come back to you. Great spot to set up. Food. When do you hunt a food source? I hunt a food source in the afternoon, evening, not in the morning. If they're there in the morning, you spook them out, they're not coming back in the evening. Very critical. And when we talk about bow hunting and needing that close shot, it's so critical that you make good decisions of where you're hunting. There's a lot more separation between hunting as far as bedding areas, food sources. Again, I shoot a lot of my bucks during gun back in bedding areas because I'm in that thick area on opening day waiting for deer to come to me. But a lot of times after that opening day set, I'm hunting food sources in the evening off at a distance so I can allow those deer to come to that food source over and over and over again and not be molested or disturbed or pressured. And when you allow that pattern to continue, it only strengthens over time, not decreases. If it decreases in your end, you're watching a food source and the food is still there, it means you're pressuring them in some way, and you really want to avoid that. Doesn't matter where you're hunting. So that food source, so critical. I love hunting food sources, but I'm not going to hunt a food source unless it's a small food source on the way to a big one. If I'm out there in an acre and a half food source with a bow and I'm on the edge, let's say I get in there safely in the afternoon, there's no deer, how do I get out? And at the same time, how do I shoot the back 2/3 of the field or back 3/4 of the field? You can't. So unless they're coming in right in front of you and you get that one-time opportunity like a lot of people try for, they show on the outdoor channel because they don't tell you that they're only sitting in that location a handful of times throughout the 3 or 4 month season, then you blow it. You go in there, you sit, you go off for broke, you spook the deer, and it's done. Not only is the food source done, but the bedding area is done. You have to allow this entire chain to happen. You spook this food source out, don't expect deer to be back in those bedding areas other than does and fawns maybe that are still hitting this food source right at dark or after. So food source, I like a small food source that I know deer are moving through, just a window of movement on the way to an afternoon major food source. That might be an area where I put a water hole because it's 75 yards back. Look at it this way, it's far enough away from the big food source. If you can imagine, I tell clients this all the time, if you can imagine 20 deer out in that food plot, that big major food plot, and you can get in and out of that stand without spooking them, that's the distance you should be. away. Any closer, no good. Now at the same time, if you go too far, then you're not towards the bottom of the funnel of movement in the afternoon, meaning you have deer come from all kinds of bedding areas or going to that major food source. The closer you are to the food source, the more you can capitalize on several movements coming into that food source at the same time, as opposed to being just on one random leg 200 yards away from that food source. I hope that makes sense. You're more at the top of the funnel then. So I like food sources if it's just a glimpse in their movement, a quick stop. They're sitting there for 5-10 minutes making a scrape along the side and they're just moving through. That's about it. Love water holes too because it's pinpoint movement. Downwind edge. So I'm hunting on the downwind edge of all these. I'm hunting on the downwind edge of food sources, water holes, mock scrapes, bedding areas, everything in between. I'm hunting the downwind edge. And that's really critical to think about that. The downwind edge is important because so many people will say, if you're planning to hunt a certain stand and the wind is bad, do you still hunt it? The dead straight answer 100% is never. And I probably wasn't planning on hunting in that stand in the first place because the wind is the most predictable pattern of the weather forecast. How much snow you get, how much rain, if you get rain or snow. Wind speeds could be 25 mile an hour, could be 18 miles an hour, but they're going to be moderate or high. But direction is really always true because that has to do with major jet stream. Now when you throw thermals into it, that's why we came up with the Hunting Hills and Thermals web class, because hills offer a huge different animal. You can't just say this wind is perfect for this stand just on face value of its flat land and it's blowing this direction. If it comes from this way, it blows this way. It comes from the northeast, blows to the southeast. Or it comes from the northwest, blows to the southeast. You can't do that. It doesn't move straight line like that in hills, but it does in flatland. So bottom line is you're on that downwind edge, and that allows you to hunt and hunt and hunt and keep hunting without spooking deer. Number 5, you're hunting this downwind edge. You're focusing on food in the afternoon, evening. You're focused on bedding in the morning. You're not spooking out the deer in either because you're hunting the edge. I'm hunting scrapes, funnels, pinch points, water, strip of cover. So what I'm doing, instead of hunting a giant open hardwoods in between bedding areas during the rut in the morning, I'm hunting the downwind edge of that strip of hardwoods where it meets early successional growth, maybe an upland setting, maybe a swamp edge, maybe a drop in the hillside, some type of habitat change, and it might even be a cutting, a recent clear cut. But if you're hunting that edge, think about the more edges that come together, water, change of habitat, age of timber cutting, elevation change, then your stand tells a long story of there should be deer in this location. A lot of times it's a thick strip of cover, where in front of me I have open timber for a ways. Behind me I might have open timber or bad deer habitat for some reason, water or drop off, and I'm just hunting that thin strip. So I'm finding that thin strip. I'd rather cheat towards that thin strip than be closer to food and not be as defined, for example, or closer to bedding. I want to be on that thin strip, that pinch point. I'm making sure I have a mock scrape there or a natural scrape that I can enhance. Maybe there's a water source there that I can add or dig out a little bit. But there's a lot of reasons for me to be in that spot, especially when it comes to a bow. Now with a gun, I could sit off in that same movement. I don't care if they're moving through a 100-yard area. I don't care where they're at. But with that bow, I want to make sure that I'm funneling it down to where I'm hunting that thick cover between the 2 points on the downwind edge. If I can't get on the downwind edge, meaning the movement is over here and there's deer that move here too, then I'm going to hunt here and try to make changes so this is better on private land, or I'm going to move on public land 100, 150 yards so that I can actually find more of a pinch point, because that's what you need with bow hunting. You need to be on that downwind edge. Now, alongside, like we talk about hunting that edge, bedding, food, whatever it might be, when you're hunting alongside those improvements, you're hunting that pinch point, that funnel, then you live to hunt another day. Think of the deer as if they had guns. Think of the enemy, Afghanistan, Iraq, whatever it might be. You don't go hide in the middle of the city where the enemies are, where the enemy soldier in their middle of their camp. You wait off on the edge or the side somewhere where they're going to find a travel route to pick them off when they're going between whatever they're doing or leaving their camp. That's where you're going to try to get a shot at them. It's no different with deer. How many people go set up with a redneck blind or muddy? I love my redneck blind, but I don't go sit in the middle of a food source where they're congregating. I don't go sit in the middle of their bedding area where they're congregating. I sit along the edge. Typically, a buck cruises on the downwind edge. That's why I'm hunting there too. I have the wind favor. He has a wind favor because he can scent check that downwind edge of the bedding. He can scent check the downwind edge of the food. That's why you're there. That's why he's there. Think about that. It's not that you're hunting the downwind edge and he's always on the other side, because the wind's blowing from that improvement. A wise old buck will be on that downwind edge. Now he's right at your feet. That's a really good thing. It places him there. You live to hunt another day, meaning you can hunt that stand over and over again. And if you're accessing through a non-deer area, you're blowing your scent into a non-deer area, you're getting right to the edge of the movement. That edge is funneled down. You're between bedding areas, you're between bedding and food. And you can get away with hunting that stand more often without spooking deer, and that increases your success and odds. Not to mention your odds and success are already increased because you're slanting towards bedding in the morning. You wait until the rut for that. You're slanting towards food in the afternoon all season long. You might be in between somewhere during the middle of the rut, the peak rut, if you're going to take an all-day stand. That's why there's very few all-day stands. About 15% of mine we add up is 15% of my stands are appropriate for all day because they're in that magical X of movement between bedding and feeding. That's an all-day rut stand where bucks can be coming through. It's thick, it's double funnels, they're coming in from different directions. You're in that X of movement. That's a great spot to hunt all day, but you're really focusing on outside of the peak rut and maybe the secondary rut. You're really hunting morning here, evening here, and you're hunting alongside, so you get to live another day. And then finally, with your bow, with your actual tree stand setup. If that's what you came to this for, sorry, it's point number 7 all the way at the end here. But I like to be able to sit down when I shoot. Also, I want my back against the tree so I'm not silhouetted. That's critical. Because if you're going after 4- and 5-year-old bucks, you can't be out away from the tree. You got to be part of the tree. You got to blend in. You can't say, well, I'm up 25 feet in the air. So what? If you're out in the open hardwoods in a public land spot, they're going to see you from 150 yards away. You need to be a part of that tree. And also, I want to be able to sit and on a very quiet stand, which is critical, or seat in a blind, I want to be able to turn and shoot this way. And I want to be able to sit and shoot all the way here. You're almost sitting and shooting 180 degrees just from a sitting shot. I'm not just shooting on this side of the tree. And I also want to be able to have my bow on a hanger right in front of my face or right on the ground on the platform upright so that I can just slowly lift it up and pull straight back. I don't want my bow hanging over on a tree here where I have to reach for it, grab it, bring it around, shoot. You just lost 20% of your deer. Really critical with a bow. If your stand's noisy, you might lose half your deer. If you're sitting away from the tree, you might lose 20% of your deer. Add it all up, and some people don't have a chance with a bow of getting off a shot before they even go out in the woods. So I want quiet stands. I want a bow hanger. I want to be sitting down if I can get away with it. If I have to stand, I'll stand. That's okay. I might even let them pass, get up slowly because I have a quiet stand, and shoot them right down there. Pretty easy to do. But I demand these things right here, and then I want at least 3 shooting lanes. And what I mean by that is I think that they're going to come in this 15, 20 yard, 30 yard window right here. I might have a hole here at 10 yards when they come through, and then another one out here at 10 yards, another one, and then I might have different holes for 20 and 30. But bottom line is, I want 3 locations I can shoot these deer when they come through this 180 degrees of movement, 120 degrees. I want to be able to see them here, here, and here and get a shot. I see them in this one, get a shot in the second or third one. I want to be able to stop them. You know, if they're moving at 10 yards away and they're coming through and I'm shooting between trees, I want to be able to make my release go off right there as they're walking slowly through. I'll take a walking shot at 10 yards. I don't think that's a bad thing. It is if I'm using, I use back tension releases. There's one right here, one of my old Carters, right here. I'll take that release during target, put just like this, and the more I push, pull, eventually these 3 fingers pull into this release and it goes off. I use a complete surprise called back tension. When I do that, I don't know when the arrow's going off. So even at 10 yards, when that buck's going between trees, if I'm following, I'm probably going to hit a tree because I don't know when the bow is going off. So I use an index trigger release for hunting because I want to make sure when he goes right there, I want to shoot. When he stops and he's stopped for 2 seconds, I want to make sure my bow goes off. I don't want to miss an opportunity because I'm waiting for the release to go. That's all fine and dandy on big open pasture land areas, ag fields, food plots, but we all don't hunt in those locations. I hunt in the woods typically. So I want that shot to go off when I want to. I want to have those 3 lanes to shoot them. I want to be sitting down for the shot. I want to have a quiet stand. I want to have a bow hanger so it's right in front of my face. Very little movement just to grab the bow, even if I turn a little bit and shoot. I want to make sure we could add this right here that I'm not overbowed. That's really critical because if you're shooting a 70-pound bow and you really should be shooting 62, I shoot 62, 63. One of the reasons I do that is because I can go just like this when I pull back. I can pull back straight at the deer. and shoot. I could easily shoot 75 pounds. I'd probably go like this in the stand. That movement's going to make you lose 15, 20% of the deer, 10% of the deer, whatever the number is, it's not acceptable to me. So you have to bring your bow poundage down enough that when you have warm clothes on and it's 10 degrees out and you're making that shot of a lifetime at a buck at 20 yards during early December, that you can just simply pull straight back and make a clean shot without sky drawing and spooking them. So from stand location setup to where to hunt, morning, evening, I hope this bow hunting setup, these bow hunting setup tips work for you, and then you can wrap it up. Because when it comes to bow hunting, rarely do I see a mature buck more than once during the season. Most of the time when I see him, he's within bow shot because I'm following these rules right here, and most of the time I get a shot off. I rarely spook a deer from the stand because I'm paying attention to these tips right here. For once I'm in the stand, I'm hunting on the edge, I'm on the downwind, because I know through experience, and this has taken years and years, 35 years, 36 years of bow hunting, that I know from years of experience that I don't get another chance at that mature buck typically, especially with a bow. You get one chance, you should close the deal 90% of the time, and you will if you follow these tips, and I hope that makes sense. Bow hunting is a different animal, and then I love coming back to these bow setups and hunting with my gun. I had the gun, I was a 4-year-old 45, we call him, 45 last year. Had him come through the muzzleloader, safety off, and boy, he was a really cool buck. I almost pulled the trigger. He's 5 this year. I passed him up the other day because I wanted to have Dylan with me. It's more the camaraderie. Dante's going to be here tonight hunting. Jen's here hunting tonight, so it'd be fun. He's a buck that'd be cool for any one of us to shoot tonight, but it's not all about the antlers and inches and even size and shooting and killing something. There's more to hunting than that, and I hope you can take advantage of that too while you're taking your bow to your favorite tree stand this fall. I urge everyone out there to really check out my web classes. They've been wildly successful. We have one that details how you should design your land, another one that details how you should plant and maintain and manage a food plot program. How can you make those decisions that fit your land specifically and not someone else's? Unfortunately, there's so much information in the hunting industry that says you should do this, but it doesn't apply to you. These web classes directly apply to you. And then we have our third web class that came out last year, our rut web class, navigating the entire rut. And then we have our fourth one coming out, which is hunting hills and thermals. I urge you to check those out, try the web classes, and they're all about teaching, helping you understand how you can navigate, not only managing your property, food plots, and the rut, but also hunting strategically, hills, thermals, and wherever you pursue whitetails for your dream and your passion.